Welcome. This is All Minus One Quick Shots. Folks, you may have heard, I have been talking about it here and there, that there is a gun grab going around right now within the Democrat Party sphere. So currently, the president, Joe Biden, is talking about implementing the assault weapons ban that was implemented some years ago. Now, I'm going to discuss the merits of the assault weapons ban, but I'm not really going to get into all of the details of it. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the evidence that it didn't work or do anything. Crime rates were already dropping for various reasons, mostly because of different sentencing practices and crackdowns on certain laws. And on top of that, we've been studying this for the last 20 years. We're not exactly sure why. Some people actually have attributed video games to bringing down rates of violence because people are being more social playing video games, which is an interesting idea. But in any case, we will talk about the merits of the ban. But first, I want to show you. This is not a firearm. This is legally not a firearm. This is an upper receiver for an AR-15 that I've had since 1998. And this was during the assault weapons ban. The difference, well, this is not a flash suppressor. This is a compensator. This is an AK-74 compensator. It actually reduces muzzle climb and recoil significantly. And then right here, I do not have a bayonet lug, which I don't care. That is the main difference. Could not have a flash hider, which suppresses the amount of flash or fire that comes out of the barrel, right? Which can reduce the signature where you're shooting from. But not that big of a deal. This, on the other hand, spreads the concussion out sideways and keeps the gun flatter. This is actually a more accurate weapon than a standard military M16 or M16A2, A4, whatever they're using now, or M14. So, guys, understand that. This also has a match grade barrel. Now, I don't use this. This thing has barely ever been shot. It's not one of my primary weapons. That's why it's just an upper receiver, but I have had it forever. And I wanted to explain that this was acquired during the assault weapons ban. It did not stop me from having the type of weapons that people are basically being fearful about. And speaking of which, let's talk about some of that right now. What are people being afraid of? Well, they're afraid of what firearms do annually. And in this is a CDC report on violence prevention. In fact, I'll go all the way back up top so you all can see that. Violence prevention. I'll even turn off my dark mode for a minute. Centers for Disease Control. And if we run down here, we will see that there was, in 2018, almost 40,000 firearms-related deaths. But about 109 people die daily from firearms-related injuries. Now, when we break that down, that's primarily gang violence. It says here, 6 out of every 10 deaths were firearms suicide, and more than 3 out of every 10 were firearms homicides. So 30% are homicides, gang violence, and the majority of which, I mean, obviously people kill people randomly for other reasons quite often, but 60% were suicides. It brings this number down to about 10,000 people a year, which is tragic, but again, folks, this is a certain demographic of people, and this isn't racially demographics, this isn't ethnicity, this is behavioral demographics. I have dealt with and met many a murderer in my life, and I can tell you, the race is not a discriminator. More people suffer non-fatal firearms-related injuries than die. 7 out of every 10 medically treated firearms injuries are from firearm-related assaults. 2 out of 10 are unintentional firearms injuries, meaning you had a irresponsible discharge, a negligent discharge. It says firearm Injuries affect people in all stages of life and is one of the 5 leading causes of death from ages 1 to 64. Now, I don't know about that. I'd have to go through those numbers, and they don't have them supplied here offhand. It says some groups have higher rates of firearms injuries than others. Males account for 85% of all victims. So firearms are apparently sexist against men, given that 85%. Why is it that 85% of men are killed by firearms, while only, the remaining 15% are female? I think that that's sexist, and we need to correct that. There should be implementation of legislation immediately to correct this. I mean, we did this with the wage gap. We did this with the education gap. We should do this with the firearms death gap. 88% of non-fatal injuries as well. So women need to be shot more often, apparently. Rates of firearm violence also vary by age and race ethnicity. Firearm homicide rates are highest amongst teens and young adults from 15 to 34 years old. Why? Because that is the demographic for young male adolescents who are, and of course young adults, of course, who are the most violent, who are the most prone to gang violence. And this is primarily a function of homes without fathers. And of course, it perpetuates itself. Poverty, homes without fathers, and single motherhood. And then what happens is the gang leaders themselves become the fathers, and they get these young kids to commit crimes and murders, one, to slowly break them in, because once you start to go down that slippery slope of evil, it becomes easier to be evil each and every time. But not just to break them in, but because they know they will not be charged as adults in most cases. This is what happens. It says firearm suicide rates are highest among 65 and older. And the reason for that, of course, is pretty obvious. We don't take care of our elderly. We do not respect them. We do not love them. And they are very lonely. And it's no wonder why we have such a screwed up society. So again, here's the numbers, guys. What is really important, though, is down here. Well, if my mouse will work for me. And that is this little section right here. What is defensive gun use? How often does it occur? Well, this report, Priorities of Research to Reduce the Threats of Firearms-Related Violence, that was done under the Obama administration. And it indicates that somewhere between 60 to 2.5 million defensive gun uses each year. Defensive, meaning they stopped a violent crime, some sort of crime, or potential murder. So it is twice the number of deaths, at least, well, nearly twice, of those that occur. And most of the deaths that occur, of course, are suicides. So what are we, like we could either have another 60,000 to 2.5 million crimes committed every year, potential murders committed every year, or we could just deal with the fact that people have guns and guns are a tool and people, decide to use them how they wish. So with that, we have here from AEI, a study from 93 to 2013 of homicide rates and gun purchases. And as we can see, the gun purchasing rate has gone up while the homicide rate has dropped significantly. And that's very important. And guys, if you aren't aware, you should go check out John Lott's book, More Guns, Less Crime, or his website. It's got a lot of really good information. Now, I talked about this assault weapons ban, and I want to bring out this article that is from, 1999, August of 99. And this is in the, the Sacramento Bee. So, her neck of the woods, Dianne Feinstein's neck of the woods, going to be quite liberal or progressive. Fact check. Would Dianne Feinstein's assault weapons ban stop future mass shootings? And the answer is no. So to not bury the lead on you, the answer is no. But they're going to take a very liberal approach about it. And it says, we have to get weapons of war off our streets. Well, there aren't any weapons of war on our streets per se. All weapons are just simply weapons. They are tools. And how you use them is up to you. We call things assault weapons arbitrarily. Like I said, for the particular AR upper that I've had for over 20 years, it was just fine under the assault weapons ban, functionally exactly the same as any other AR-15, except for the compensator and bayonet stud. Of course, I did not have select fire. I only had single automatic fire in that lower receiver, and that lower receiver is being used elsewhere. Because again, I don't really use this old school upper. So it says, Feinstein said in her statement, her fourth on gun violence following 3 mass shootings over the past week. Well, of course, we've been propping up the idea of mass shootings because, again, you guys fall for this trick too often of, well, we get a Republican in, and he's going to be the bad guy for 4 to 8 years, and then the Democrats will come in and save us. That's the game, guys. Trump, I don't think, was a part of that, but he also gave too many concessions to the swamp that allowed for things to happen, bad things to happen, because I don't think I think he underestimated, the reality of how terrible the corruption in D.C. actually is. It says Feinstein, who wrote the 1994 federal law that banned so-called assault weapons for 10 years, pointed to data compiled by author Louis Kalarevs, or however you pronounce the name, who founded that gun massacres dropped by 37% during the decade the law was in place. But the decade after the ban expired saw an enormous 183% increase in massacres, she noted in her statement. That data on its own does not prove that the ban on military-style weapons and other semi-automatic firearms is the singular cause for the drop in mass shootings, nor does it demonstrate that the ban lapse in 2004, thanks to a sunset clause in law, directly drove the increase in shootings. Other factors could also be at play, yada, yada, yada. It goes on. A 2015 study found a statistical significant association between the federal assault weapons ban and reductions in mass shooting deaths and injuries, although the nonpartisan think tank, the RAND Corporation, found that the study did not meet their standards of analysis, meaning it was a bunk study. And that's going to bring me over to ProPublica because they fact-checked this as well. This was back in 2014. By the way, folks, I was a senior in high school during the, pretty sure I was a senior in high school during the Columbine incident. That was during the tail end of this. This is when the idea of mass shootings really became prevalent in the mind of the media because it was in suburbia. Because we don't pay attention to gang violence. The majority of mass shootings that occur every year in the United States are gang violence in inner cities, period. That is just a fact. The majority of violence, of all violence in the United States, is gang-related. It's usually gang-on-gang crime. Now, you can insert ethnicity or race there as you please. It doesn't matter. People tend to kill people that they're associated with. They don't kill random folks. The people that kill random folks are generally what we call sociopaths, psychopaths, whatever. They tend to be things like serial killers. They aren't the majority of the population causing these things. People do crimes of passion. That's why they murder other people. Like I said, I've known many a murderer in my time. One guy particularly, I think I've told the story before on here, killed one of his roommates. Just decided one day he was cooking, just decided to stab him 3 times in the heart with a butcher knife. The guy was just sitting in a chair. This was the murderer's statement that he just knew it was me or him. And then after he stabbed his roommate 3 times in the chest, he wrapped him up in a blanket or something and put him in the closet. And a week later, his girlfriend came around looking for him and smelled the smell and called the police. And yeah, that is no joke, true story. I know another guy that, did know another guy that shot his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, lured her to his place, set it up, tried to stage it like it was self-defense, shot upon her, like basically ambushed her from a vehicle, just all kinds of stuff. Like that's a very well thought out, premeditated murder. The other one, not so much. Both equally reprehensible, but the common thread is that they knew the person. So let's go into this real quick. So the evidence is not clear. The ban worked, except there's no evidence that it saved lives. And the researchers behind the key statistics Feinstein cited say that it's an outdated figure that was based on false assumptions. Again, this was back in 2014. And it talks about the assault weapons ban. And what she said, the evidence is clear. But gun violence experts say that the exact opposite. There is no compelling evidence that it saved lives. Duke University public policy experts Philip Cook and Kristen Gross wrote their book, The Gun Debate, What Everyone Needs to Know, a definitive study of the 94 law, which prohibited the manufacture and sales of semi-automatic guns with military-style features such as pistol grips and bayonet mounts, as well as magazines holding more than 10 rounds of ammunition. Found no evidence that it had reduced overall gun crime or made shootings less lethal. We cannot clearly yada yada yada. In any case, you can read this for yourself. I'm getting a little long for this segment, but look, guys, here's the bottom line. The majority of gun crimes are committed with handguns. I don't think we should ban handguns either. This thing to go after so-called assault weapons. By the way, under that law, this is not an assault weapon. You can see this is an old-style AR-15 in a A2 configuration with an AK-74 compensator on it, not a flash suppressor, and no bayonet lug. This would pass under that law. It does the same thing. It does the exact same thing as any other AR type platform. And frankly, folks, the feds do not have this power to prohibit your gun rights like this. But like I said, the majority of these deaths are caused by handguns. It's something like 200 to 100 or less firearms of long gun configuration cause deaths in the United States annually. 100 to 200-ish. And they're not all AR-15s. In fact, that's the minority of them. Oftentimes they're hunting rifles or other type of long guns. So we have to have a proper perspective of these things. We have to understand that firearms actually save lives, not just police officers, not just store owners who may be able to use them, but everyday citizens. That your right to carry actually gives you protection. The idea of a polite society is an armed society. I live in a state with 50% gun ownership. I'm very happy about that. We have constitutional carry. No crime in my area. Not of that sort. And, I see people open carry around here quite a bit. I think that's silly. I think you're inviting yourself to be a target. If I wanted to be a bad guy and do something tactically, I would take out those people who would pose the immediate threat to me. There's an argument I used to have at the hospital and other places that I've worked as security, where they would like you to stand up front, completely exposed as a target with no firearm. Of course, they were integrating firearms there to the security team, but not everyone had them. And so if you would just stand at registration with the registration people and someone wanted to come in to shoot it up, they just come in and do it. And the policymakers don't think about these things because often they're just not tacticians. They're some guy that somebody liked and they were put in there, right? And that's exactly what we're seeing now. What's Dianne Feinstein done over the years other than go after guns repeatedly? Or Joe Biden, what has he done? He's put in this bill back in the day, the crime reform legislation bill back in the 90s, all that stuff. I don't know that was what actually did help out things at the time, though. I think the strong prohibition of the drug war is a big problem with our modern crime. It creates gangs. The fatherless homes, that's a problem created by the welfare state, which is a institution the Democrats created. I think there was more harm to their policies than the good old-fashioned constitutional perspective of live and let people have their rights, let people protect themselves. And so, in any case, guys, I just kind of wanted to cover some basics. There'll be a million videos out there with this kind of stuff, of course. But there is talk about the assault weapons ban coming back, and it will be functionally no big deal. No big deal, unless the ATF man comes to your door. You always got to watch them G-man. But guys, this has been All Minus One Quick Shots, and with all that, I wish you all well.